Greetings, this is Frosty Thundertrot, Telnor Beastmaster of the Sunder Guard. Today I am going to be doing a guide for starting up Ashes of Creation uh, Early Access, or as it's better known, Alpha 2. Click past the warning screen here. Alright, first you select your server. The server name's probably going to be different. I think they're going to try to merge into one super server for the early access. But for right now, we have Shoal for the US and Lorthrina for EU. So I'm going to go ahead with Shoal since I am in US. Alright. Now I'm going to assume you don't have any characters. You can see my two production server characters. Alright, so create a new character. First, you're going to choose your race. You got the Dunir, which are your traditional dwarves. The Nakua, these are your Polynesian ocean dwarfs. Empyrean, these are your high elves. Pyre, wood elves. Kalar, these are your European humans. Velun, these tend to be the more Mid-Eastern humans. Vek, these are technically orcs, but I think they look more like trolls than orcs. And then in early access, but what is not shown here are the Rinkai, which are your more traditional orc. You can choose to have a feminine body or a masculine body. Doesn't matter. Um, while there is plans for differences in these races later on, there are none currently. Even though the characters are different sizes, they all have the same hitbox. As you can see, each has a little bit of lore descriptions to them. And in addition, the Telnor, which of course is my chosen race, have not been implemented yet, so I can't really tell you anything about them. Alright, next you choose your archetype. Start off with the Bard. The Bard is a good and strong class. You can play it simply and be a mana battery and be useful in groups. But if you want to dive into real mastery, the Bard can do some pretty impressive things. It's one of the two classes which can kind of step into different roles in the game. Although its default is kind of mana battery and support. But someone who's played Bard a lot can step in and be a competent healer. They can step in and be a decent DPS as well. Uh, Bard there's a double threshold for this. There's the entry threshold to be the mana battery, and then there's the higher threshold to be a truly masterful Bard. If you want to be a Bard, you probably should main Bard pretty heavily. It's not something that you want to be playing if you're going to be doing a bunch of alts. Clerics, these are your healers. This is probably the single strongest archetype in the game. They're the best healers. They have a little bit of buffing ability. They do decent damage. Now, clerics and Ashes of Creation do have a few individual quirks, but generally speaking, if you've played healer in other MMOs, you'll be able to handle the cleric here in Ashes. It's a good, strong class, and it's a class that if you want to have a couple different characters, definitely having a cleric is a good idea. Fighter is a melee DPS. This is one of the best solo classes you can get. It's got good DPS, it has decent sustain, it has a very limited but very useful form of CC in which it can knock enemies down. It has some advanced mechanics which give you some interest in the game. But you have a couple choices here. You can be more of the berserker style, just swinging around big swords and, spin to win, doing, uh, big AoE damage. Or you can be more uh, tactical and more single target. Switch to like dual daggers or some other quick weapons for a very finesse and technique based build. It has a little bit of interest to it beyond, the very boring that fighters tend to be in other games. So it is a good class for a first time player, and if you want to play multiple alts, like the cleric, this is a good choice for that. Mage. This is pretty, has some unique abilities here in Ashes of Creation. But in the end, it is what you would expect. This is your glass cannon, just dust off and nuke them from orbit to make sure. It has some CC, but it's nothing great. What it does a little bit better at the range DPS because it doesn't so much rely on traditional kiting as it can blink around. So it has advanced movement beyond just, running backwards while firing spells. Ranger. This is the class or archetype I've played the most in Alpha 2. Because it's half of my chosen class, the Beastmaster. If you get Summoner, then Ranger. Summoner mixed with Ranger, then you get Beastmaster. Overall, the Ranger is kind of a one-trick pony. What it specializes in is ranged physical DPS when you're in large PvP fights. Because quite often when you're when you're going up against other groups of players, their bards, their clerics, and their mages are all going to be in cloth armor. So your physical range damage will be able to chew right through them. And much better than a magic attacks from a mage or a bard or a summoner will be able to. So that is the Ranger's one unique thing in the world. As they shut down cloth armed casters. And most games, Ranger is like one of the best solo classes. In Ashes of Creation, that's really not the case. While you do have a lot of mobility, it's very difficult to kite in here because you have to stack snares. You have to stack both snares and chill in order to slow your enemies down. Plus, you have to stack your own speed buffs. So, in Ashes of Creation, the NPCs are just significantly faster than you are. You have to be on your mount and using your mount sprint to be able to outrun most NPCs. But even then, on a mount with your sprint going, wolves and a few other NPCs can still keep up with you. So, kiting is not very viable in Ashes of Creation. Rogue. Rogues are a interesting class. Once again, this is melee DPS. They can also do some range DPS. Well, every class has the ability to do range DPS, but rogues are definitely more melee oriented. They're fairly good solo because you always have the option to use stealth to choose when to fight and when not to fight, so you can get good situational awareness and wait for, the enemies to break up so you can grab just the one you want. They're great for harvesting because if you see somebody charging in on you while you're out harvesting, you can always just stealth up. So, great for harvesting, great for solo, great for small scale PvP, and they still have a job to do in large scale PvP as well. Tanks are excellent. They have pretty decent DPS. They're probably a little bit better than Ranger in DPS terms, but of course it's melee DPS. And they have one excellent crowd control, which is their ability to throw up a wall. And their grapple has finally been fixed, so now you can grapple enemies and pull them to you. So the tank is definitely an excellent class, and as long as you can handle aggression, it's another class if you want to play a bunch of alts, you know, having a tank, a fighter, and a cleric, pretty good choices overall. Now there is one more archetype which is not shown here since this is the production server. It is on the public test realm, but that is under visual NDA, so I can't show you anything from there, and that's the summoner. The summoner, much like the bard, has the ability to step into different roles. And just like the bard, the summoner is something you can do kind of okay on by yourself at a low skill level, playing it kind of similar to a hunter. But if you want to get the most out of being a summoner, you really need to understand, what each pet does and how your abilities interact with itself and with the pet. It does have a secondary mechanic like all the other archetypes do, but the summoner secondary mechanic actually plays a real role in the fact that if you can keep your focus up, that allows your pet to do way more nasty things or beneficial things. So just like the bard, I would say if you want to be a summoner, be just a summoner. Don't play nothing but summoner, master the summoner, and then once you've totally mastered the summoner, and if you have nothing else to do, you can come back and play one of the other archetypes. But definitely would go with the summoner it's going to be my archetype of choice. So all archetypes are viable, except maybe the ranger, which I'm sad to say because rangers are usually my favorite. So let's give myself a name. Somebody already has the Frosty on this server, so I can't use Frosty. But I'll go ahead and go with the tank archetype. And here you have a few presets you can select from. And then you can customize out. And, and you can even go into more detail and, start sculpting it. Which I've never been able to really get this to work well. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but I just don't. I'm not a 3D artist, so I can't get the most out of this. So where if somebody is a 3D artist, they can probably get a lot more out of this than I can. Alright, your starting region. You have the Divine Gate of Aaliyah, which is the Riverlands, or the Divine Gateway of Denzen Krell, which is the Anvils. For most people, I would suggest going with the Riverlands. The Anvils is more aesthetically pleasing, I think, but it is a more difficult environment and it's not as well level scaled as the Riverlands are. And then you have your background you can choose from. This gives you some more um, lore flavor, but right now it does nothing in game. So choosing you like, if you got some time, if you don't have a rare name that you have to worry about somebody else snagging, go ahead and take some time to read these on backgrounds. They'll give you some interesting lore insights that it's pretty much lacking from most of Ash's. Most RPGs at this stage of release, their website's just covered with pages and pages and pages of lore, but that's not the case for Ashes of Creation. So here we go, our level 1 tank. Long loading screen. Alright, so here we are. Alright, there will be a quest in here that you can take. All these quests are actively being reworked, so I'm not going to bother showing them because it's all going to change by December 11th anyway. But what you also can do around here is you'll find various weapons laying around that you can pick up. Musty Spellbook. Here's a shield. A scepter. Some daggers. Rusty Greatsword. Alright, now press I to open your inventory. And I'm going to show you one of the interesting features here in Ashes of Creation. Now if I hover over this Musty Spellbook, you'll see it lists 113 magic power and 28 magic crit power, 10 intelligence, 54 mag accuracy. And then if I look at the scepter, once again this is a melee weapon, and you'll notice once again this is 71 mag power, 24 mag speed, 7 intelligence, 36 mag accuracy. But now let's take a look at the next Unadorned Daggers. This is also a melee weapon, and it is 106 physical power, 35 physical speed, 10 strength, 54 physical accuracy. So every type of weapon in this game, except for the scepter and the mace, has both a magic damage version and a physical damage version. So if you're playing a magic class, which is the cleric, the bard, the mage, and the summoner, you're going to want to use weapons that deal magic, but they have magic power on them. If you're a martial class, which is the ranger, the warrior, the tank, and the rogue, you're going to want to use weapons that have physical damage on them. You'll find several weapons just laying around here, so you can pick one up and use it. It doesn't matter which ones you use. Each weapon does have a passive weapon skill tree to it, but most of the weapons of a type are very similar trees. So since I'm a tank, I started off with, let's hit the C for character. So I started off with a one-handed sword and a shield. Now you'll notice here I can equip a melee weapon and a ranged weapon. So as a tank, I can go ahead and equip this magic spellbook. Now, since I have relatively low intelligence, I'm not going to be able to get the most use out of this spellbook. But I can still use it. And then if I find a physical spellbook, I can use that to full effect. So every character has the option for melee weapon and for ranged weapon. Right now I'm not tanking for a group, so I'm going to unequip my single-handed sword, and I'm going to equip my rusty daggers. Rusty daggers, unadorned daggers, so this is a physical weapon. It has decent stats overall. I kind of like them because they attack fast. Generally speaking, weapons either attack fast with relatively low damage, or they attack slowly with big damage. As for which is better, totally depends. Here we go, this is a longbow, which is physical. You can also get the spell bows, so let's reopen my character sheet. Then I can equip the longbow. This will give me better coverage for what I need. Alright, now let's reopen character. Now here you're going to see a lot of stats. Right now, if you hover over these stats, it'll give you a good description of what they do and a breakdown. I mean, this list is enormous. As the game progresses and we get more information into it, this is going to make huge amounts of difference in metagaming. You know, because here you got fire damage and fire resistance, fire bonus, you know, versus fire boost. But for some things that I'm going to mention is mentality, because you'll sometimes see a lot of equipment that says mentality. Mentality is basically magic defense. And then, yeah, intelligence is your magic power, strength is your physical power, dexterity is your crit chance, physical power, wisdom is your magic power, magic speed, crit chance. So basically, as you look down here at the list, strength and intelligence are the physical and magical equivalents of each other. Dexterity and wisdom are the physical and magical equivalents of each other. And constitution and mentality are the physical and magical equivalents of each other. Here's your base stats. Like I said, as you can see, there is a simply enormous amount of stats here. It's too much to go into for a new player guide, and you won't need to worry about this for the time being. Right, now let's go find a monster to kill. There should be some goblins right over here. Now I'm going to move away from the guards, because if I attack a goblin too close to the guards will rush right over there, kill the goblin for me, and take the kill credit away. Alright, so I'm going to attack that one right here. Now, I've already, on my ranged one, I can use the Q key to swap back and forth between melee and ranged. My special attacks, which is bound to the 4 key right now, are melee only. So, I got my ranged weapon out. Well, somebody else is attacking that one. So I'll grab this one here. Press the E key to attack. Now, you can fight just fine with your ranged weapon here in melee fights like this. In fact, it does have an advantage in that ranged weapons will only ever hit one target. Now let's use my special attack here. Okay. Alright. Has to where all melee attacks, I'll swap to my melee weapon here, have some AoE effect. Now, let's go. I'll use press E to attack. But with that said, melee weapons generally do more damage than ranged weapons. But you always gotta be careful what's around you that you don't pull more aggro than you can handle. Now if you go into your inventory now, you will have some rations. You can drag your rations down to your hotbar and then click on it to sit and heal. You can also, without rations, heal up by just sitting down with the X key. Alright, I'm fully healed, so you can stand up by just moving. Alright, so now swap to ranged weapon. Let's pull this goblin. That was what's called a critical. Alright, swap to melee. And see right there on, actually you can see it up here better. Well, you could. I had built up a small shield from the combo of my special abilities. Yeah, this has been fixed in the PTR2. You no longer have a wall of water there. Proceed on down into the town. In open early access, there will be a lot of quests down through here. There are a few in this version right now, but I'm just not doing them because there's no need for me to do them. Alright, this here is your commission board. This one here is for adventuring commissions, as you can see. These are just repeatable tasks, stuff that gives you a little bit extra stuff to do. This is an Ember Spring. This is where you respawn when you die. You can bind to these to make a specific Ember Spring your home. Which means once per hour, if you die, instead of spawning at the nearest Ember Spring, you can spawn at the one that's set to be your home. This thing right here, this is a mailbox. If you have a pre-order pack by chance, you will be able to find your cosmetics in here. Cosmetics have an interesting effect because generally in PvP, without a cosmetic, you can look at me and tell what type of equipment I've got on. But now I go in here, I equip the cosmetic. Now I'm going to look like this no matter what equipment I got on. So all you can tell is what weapon I'm carrying. This is a great way that's almost essential for PvP, especially one-on-one PvP, because if you don't have a cosmetic on when you engage in one-on-one PvP, you're telling your opponent exactly what you're weak to and what you're strong against. Every settlement has a equipment vendor. It doesn't really sell any equipment other than these bags, which you can use to increase your inventory space for harvesting of very specific types of things, such as mining, so you can put rocks, metals, and gem in there, lumberjack and coarse wood. A hunting satchel is animals, dead animals that you petted to death. That said, you can put anything in these, but you'll only be able to stack them to 20. As to where with this one, if you put wood in the lumberjacking satchel, you'll be able to stack it up to 43. And later on, tailors can make better bags, which can have even larger stacks. These crafting stations are being removed in early access because this whole sweat of the brow quest is being reworked. And then over here, the board with an anvil on top, these are your commissions for harvesting. So that's as a direct comparison there. The commission board with the anvil on top is harvesting, and then the commission board over here with nothing on top but the shield at the base, this is for adventuring. Now let's head on over here. So we're going to talk to the storage clerk. The storage clerk is your bank. Now, the starting ones, which is the way, like here, or in the anvils, have the smallest storage. Now, this is separated into two parts: materials and items. Items are shared. So you can put this stuff in here, and any storage clerk I go to will have my items. Now, materials go in this tab, and materials are not shared. You have to go to each specific storage clerk in order to retrieve your materials. I think I've shown you everything now that you will need. I'll go ahead and take an adventuring commission here, so we can go ahead and do one of those, and then I'll show you how to complete a adventuring commission. Kill griffins, scout. Not all these are necessary fighting ones, like you can just scout the griffin's nest, overlook Lake Numira, slay wolves south of the Lion Hold at night. So since it is night, I'm going to go ahead and take this wolf quest. Now if you want to sprint, use left shift. And then you can sprint until your yellow stamina bar runs out. There, now I can no longer sprint. Now, if I go into a fight like this, that also means I can't dodge, see, insufficient stamina, and I can't block. Well, I can do the block animation, but anything that gets hit will go directly to hit points. See, this guy is purple. He's been flanked for PvP. And the guards just spanked his ass. Don't go near the guards if you're flagged for PvP. As a player, you're protected from PvP until level 10. Alright. Well, somebody's having quite a killing spree out here. Now, if you come down through here during the day, there'll be Grim in here. This wolf here, see, it just says wolf and it has this circle above its head. That means this wolf can be tamed, or as we call it, petted to death. But since I haven't done the crafting mission, I can't actually do any crafting right now. In the anvils, you don't need to do a crafting quest. You can just pick up the tools and go. Alright, so let's switch to my ranged weapon. E to attack. Now I can use the Z key to dodge. Or I also have that bound to my center mouse button. Or I can use the R key to block. And here we go. Since I've died, I experienced 3% XP debt, which is minus 20. And all my equipment took 1 point of durability. So, right now, the closest respawn point is the same as my home respawn point, so it doesn't matter which I choose. So I won't choose a home, that way I don't start the timer on my home. And here we are. As you can see down here on my XP bar, I have this little bit of red now, which indicates I have XP debt. And if I had any materials on me, half of my materials would have dropped when I died. But since I don't have any materials, I did have a little bit of glint. So yeah, half of the glint I had dropped when I died. And if I make it back to my ash pile before somebody else does, I will get half of the half that I dropped back. So I'll get a quarter back. But looting other people's ash piles will flag you for PvP. That's probably what happened to that guy that just got pwned by the guards. He probably looted somebody else's ash pile. As I get closer, you'll see the grave marker will pop up on my map showing me the last place I died. Here it is right there, last death location. Although it says last death location, if you die a lot, you will leave a lot of gravestone markers around. I'm not quite sure how long they last, but they do persist for a while. And here's my ashes. And yeah, there's nothing in there, so it just marks the spot that I died. So either I only had the one glint, so nothing dropped, because you can't go less than one, or somebody else already looted. So now let's fight more seriously. Swap. Now, I do like to try to circle around my enemies like this because, while melee attacks are conical, so if you get behind them when they do their attack, you'll have some of their attacks will miss you. Looks like there was a guild war going on. That's not something you really need to worry about as a new player. But there's a couple different forms of guild wars. Some of them are, the very basic and direct. You kill each other. Others are more like competitions, where you have to catch the most fish in a certain area within a given time, which gives a nice added dimension to Guild Wars, other than just pure PvP. I mean, it's still PvP, but it's a PvP form of PvP that people generally find less objectionable. That's 2. There, dodged it. Swap my... Alright, that's another thing I want to show you. I'll show you this here. Is weapon attacks are done in combos. See, 9, 8, 11, stun, miss, yeah, 11. That's a finisher. And then the deadly finisher applies the stun state. See how much of a difference there is between just standing there and tanking the hits as opposed to running around circles around the mob? Makes a huge difference in how much damage you take. And that works for every class, because every class can use every weapon and use every type of armor. Alright. So, let's go. E to attack. Come on. Swap weapons and start the Doom Circle. Yeah, that stun CC is really good for tanks. Because see how little damage I took there as opposed to just... Now, I'm going to try face tanking this one here with just my melee weapon to show the difference in... Come on. Yeah, so you can see there's a huge difference between just standing there and fighting and from actively circling the enemy. I need to kill 4 more. Alright. So I'm in tab target mode. So by pressing tab, there we go, I can select the next enemy. This doesn't work all that well, really. Go to ranged. Alright, I leveled up. So, at this point, you don't have any ability to apply stat points, but you do get to choose a few abilities. So, active skill set. Now I can choose Pulverize, which does additional threat, and this is a charge. or I can choose Desolate, which is an AoE taunt. So if you're going to play solo, you definitely don't want AoEs, but you do want single. And then confirm choice. Now here's your weapon trees. You get weapon XP and adventuring XP every time you kill somebody or something. So now I get to choose what my deadly finisher does. So since this is a dagger weapon, I can choose to bleed, snare, or wound. So I'm going to go with bleed because I like the dot damage. And then for longbow, have the choice between wound or stagger. Go with stagger. Confirm choice. Next up we have stamina. In the upcoming version, this costs 2 points per skill instead of 1 point, which is fine because at one point we had more points than we had skills. So I'm going to, since I'm a tank, I'm going to pick the Sustained Guard, which reduces the amount of stamina consumption when I successfully block an attack. Alright. Now, what wound does is it prevents you from healing or regenerating hit points. Alright, so let's go to ranged. Swap weapons. Ooh. Yes. I got uncommon poop. I make fun of that all the time because, well, yeah, it's shiny poop, but it's actually a useful crafting. Alright. Now, if you click this button here, lock unlock, that lets you move stuff around on your hotbars. Because, you know, having it start at 3 or 4 is very clumsy and awkward, so I moved it to 1 and 2. Alright, need 2 more of these to die. There we go. And I click on over here where it shows that where my quests are being tracked. It shows the commission. I click complete commission. Now I go to inventory. Oh, here's a good chance too. If you have a stack of 10 glint, you can right click it to combine it into the next bigger form of glint. Now, I got this chest which I can open. But before you do that, you need to make sure this part of your Sanctus bag is empty, because sometimes it will spawn resources, and if there's something already in these spots here, it won't pop into your bag, and you'll fail opening the chest, and you'll have to move stuff around and try it again. So let's see what's in it. Oh, that's very nice. A piece of heavy armor. This this is exceptionally rare, but it is great. It has a tank. That is exactly what I need. But yeah, you should not expect to see that very often. That is exceptionally rare and lucky drop. So I think at this point I've shown you everything you need to know to get going as far as adventuring. Gathering itself is fairly simple. I mean, you walk up. If I had a wood cutting axe on me, just walk up to a tree like this, press F, and start chopping it. As you harvest, you get both adventuring XP and gathering XP, but you don't get weapon XP. So you can actually level up your character class pretty effectively by gathering, but your weapon skills will uh, fall behind, which is not a huge deal, but it does start to add up since by the time you get, level 10, 10, 2 or 3% bonuses, can be significant as to where, just 1 or 2 levels of 2 and 3% bonuses from passives won't make a difference. But yeah, you get, 10 or more levels of just some crafting or harvesting. And yeah, then you're going to have some difficulties because your adventure level will greatly outstrip your weapon level and you won't be able to fight as effectively as you should for your level. And the same is true when you go into processing. So if I was to chop down this ash tree here and then take those logs to a crafting station and process them into timber, I would get adventuring experience for processing and I would get processing experience. Then if I took uh, those planks to a different crafting station and made a bow, then I would get adventuring experience and I would get crafting experience. So everything you do gives you adventuring experience, but using weapons gives you weapon experience, using gathering gives you gathering experience, processing gives you processing experience, and crafting gives you crafting experience on top of your adventuring experience. So I hope this will help anybody out there, and thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in Vera.